lead group here. As you can see here, it is actually the Daeung-ju has actually been controlling the pace of this race here, has been leading the way, and it'll be mainly up to him here to see how big that gap is between the chasers. Again, Daeung-ju leading the way alongside John Paul Morales. And it has been Daeung-ju who has been pacing this race more here. Again, we're seeing around perhaps maintaining speed to be around 55 to 58 kilometers an hour. So, of course, we're going to try to see how many kilometers they have gone here so far. Already well over an hour since we started. We started on that around 8 a.m. Again, we are going to see these gentlemen make a U-turn along Pagudpod. But prior to that, we have another, or right after they pass Pagudpod, we're going to have another sprint later on. And just for a kilometer. As we see, that is the second group. And that's the second group a while ago. As we're seeing them drop off just a bit here, we're going to find an update on just how far they are from the lead pack. Again, this is Junre Navarra and Junre Carcueva. Again, it has been a relatively incident-free race here so far. With only a minor crash earlier on, involving two members of the CCN Racing Factory from Hong Kong, and a couple of locals as well. But at the moment, we are now seeing the pair that could cause a bit of trouble for the lead group later on. As we take a look at the back of the peloton here. So strong racing being done. As the peloton is trying to close in. A while ago, we actually saw the peloton make some ground, around 2 minutes between them and the lead pack. As this has been an unforgiving start here to the 2025 MPTC Tour of Luzon. And so far the group, very little dropping off here. Very few, if any, have dropped off. Again, the peloton around 2 minutes away from the lead riders, the lead cyclists. Again, we're going to expect them to make a U-turn along Pagudpod, going all the way back here to Pawai. And we're seeing views from the tail of the peloton. Again, 4 protagonists have come up on top. As we, right now, this is going to be one of the more scenic routes here throughout this competition, throughout the 2025 MPTC Tour of Luzon. And one of the things that we are all excited to see here is the Burgos Lighthouse. Watch this.
Cape Bohiador Lighthouse, better known as Burgos Lighthouse, is a cultural heritage structure located in Burgos, Ilocos Norte. It was built during the Spanish colonial period on the Viga de Nagpartian hill that overlooks Cape Bohiador. It was first lit on March 30, 1892, and even more than 100 years later, still shines its light to help ships who enter the Philippine archipelago from the north not to crash into the rocky coast. The Cape Bohiador Lighthouse was constructed under the Spanish government's plan to illuminate the Philippine archipelago. It was designed first by Magin Perez y Pers and was finished by Guillermo Brockman. Back then, the lighthouse was originally fitted with first-order Fresnel lenses. However, in 1990, an earthquake that shook most of Luzon made the lighting apparatus of the lighthouse inoperable. Today, the light from the Burgos Lighthouse is produced by modern solar-powered electrical lamps. However, this does not change the lighthouse's purpose to guide those who sail along our shores.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a bit of a development here as we take a look at the leaders. You take a look at John Paul Morales and Dai Young Ju coming from Standard Insurance Philippines and Kapyong Cycling Team respectively. But the development here is that the second pack is now being closed in to by the peloton. So let's see whether or not the likes of Junrey Navarra and Junric Carcueva can actually keep that up. We're going to show you pictures of that later on, but right now the lead group here of John Paul Morales and Dai Yung Ju still firmly in charge here as we are now seeing them. You see on the bottom right of your screen their location at the moment. And we're now seeing them go through. Not quite at the loop yet, where they are expected to make that U-turn. But at the moment, we are now actually approaching one of the steeper climbs. As you can see there, you already can see that it is starting to get a bit uphill. We're expecting them to go through well in excess of a climb of more than 100 meters for the two of them. So we're going to see whether or not the second group can make up time here or if the peloton can do so as well. So the peloton a while ago, we are receiving reports that it's starting to close in on that second group. We're going to try and see if we can get pictures of that second group in a moment as we take a look at this. So this is the end of the peloton a while that we are seeing as we see the maintainers there and a couple of cyclists dropping off. But there is the peloton who are slowly making their way to close in that gap between themselves and the chasers. So let's see whether or not the chasers can maintain that lead. A while ago, we saw the gap between the peloton and the lead pack shrink to around 2 minutes, and the gap between the chasers and the leaders of John Paul Morales and Dai Yung Ju close down to only 1 minute. Well, there it is, the peloton there, and we can see it still all bunched up together. But for that second group consisting of Junrey Navarra and Junric Carcueva, let's see if they can maintain the speed that they had a while ago. Because as we saw, or as we were informed, the gap between themselves and the peloton has shrunk significantly. Again, strong cycling here we're seeing from all of these gentlemen. Again, 4 foreign teams, 13 local-based teams. Of course, these next feed zones expected to be along Pagudpod Arc. They'll be expected to go through Pagpud Municipal Hall, Marlica Highway, then back to Bangi Town. That will be when the U-turn takes place. But here, this is the middle of the pack here, the peloton, towards the tail end. Going from Pawai to Pagudpud and back to Pawai. Stage 2 happening going to Pawai to Vigan. And again, that is going to be a much more forgiving race. The race tomorrow taking place going from Pawai to Vigan, only 68.5 kilometers. Starting off in Pawai Church in Ilocos Norte and finishing at the Ilocos Sur capital. So to our kababayans over in Ilocos Sur, can't wait to see you there tomorrow. But at the moment here, we're seeing the back of the peloton. As we are seeing the third group here, this is the peloton, the top of the peloton here. We saw it a while ago. We know that this was the peloton because that's the third group. Nakita natin kasi yung cameraman natin, nandyan yung mga daliri niya. Third group though, so we are just following the directions there. Thank you so much to our hardworking men and women following this race as well, as we're trying to give you clearer pictures as well. But as we saw a while ago, that was the top of the peloton. Not quite sure there was another breakaway. We're now nearing the 1:45 mark here in terms of the hours gone through here by this group, by this race, this stage. But still, it is smooth sailing at the top for Dayungju and John Paul Morales at the top of the race. Again, they created a bit of a distance. They created a bit of a distance after that sprint a while ago earlier on. Of course, a sprint taking place around the 41-kilometer mark. And they just took charge from there. There was a bit of a race there involving 8 or so cyclists before these two made their way up front and have yet to relinquish the lead since then. They were followed by a group from Junrey Navarra and Junrey Carcueva, but then we have yet to see pictures of them. They were in that chaser group before the peloton started to close the gap between them and the chasers. So let's see whether or not they are now part of the peloton, or if they have managed to keep that gap alive and hopefully try and close things between themselves and the leaders. But then again, just exchanging spots up front there in terms of pacing the race. Let's take a look at what the stages are, or what stage 1 is consisted of, as we are seeing here around 195 kilometers. Only 5 kilometers was the neutral zone before they did start racing. We're going to be ending on Marcos Avenue in Ilocos Norte. I know that the end says around 12:37 p.m., but based on the speed that we've seen here so far, might be a bit earlier. So for all those watching along here in Ilocos Norte, especially here in Pawai, do come on over here near Marcos Avenue, near the Pawai Church, to greet our cyclists as we take a look at this. Again, we see that a while ago. Take a look at that, the elevation there that they're going to have to go through. There's going to be a bit of a U-turn midway through. That's why we're seeing similar spikes, mirror images there. And, of course, we're going to have another sprint later on as well. So let's see whether or not all of that will be impacting what we have. So take a look at the route being taken here by our cyclists. We saw it a while ago, a bit scenic for them. But, of course, with the heat that they have, I'm pretty sure that they aren't able to really enjoy some of the sights as much as we'd like them to. But let's take a look at this. There it is, the loop, and then the U-turn going all the way back to Pawai, ending up in Marcos Avenue. Of course, they already passed Lawag quite a bit a while ago. And you can only imagine the heat becoming more and more oppressive as the day goes on. Again, the heat index forecast was around 40 degrees Celsius, and I can guarantee you that's what it feels like right now. I'm looking at the sky, not a single cloud in sight. all blue, and it is sweltering hot conditions for all our cyclists as we are going to try and take a look at them again later on. But at the meantime, of course, let's take a look at some of the highlights we had from our opening ceremony yesterday.
Nakaka-inspire pa to, aside from our National Open, aside from other tours. So nabuhay yung Tour of Luzon, so ang dami nagbabantay niyan. Yung mga bata ngayon hindi nakaka-relay. Mga 50s up, di ba yun, nakaka-relay what is Tour of Luzon. Actually, yung iba naman naabot pa yung 40s kasi nga nagkaroon ng Le Tour before pandemic yan na tigil. Kausap ko lang ng Butan, bakit daw di sila na-invite, etc. Nagpapahabol pa nga last week kung sila manood ngayon, etc. It's up to you, pero definitely madadagdagan niya by next year.
It's start of something big again. It's happening again. Tour of Luzon is here. Everybody's excited. I am excited. I am inspired. The morale of the cycling community, yung mga athletes na mga cyclists na nandito, you can see in their eyes, excited sila. After 8 days, nandun ang premyo, nandun ang reward. And the reward is to finish the race and to make the Tour of Luzon a reality again.
Safe sports. We in the Olympic Committee may Safe Sports Committee. So hindi lang yung tinututuan natin dito yung karera, yung safe sports. Accidents, road accidents, and number 1, the heat index. Yan ang number 1 kalaban natin. So safety pa rin, importante.
Grabe, ito ready na kami. Super excited na kaming matuloy ito. So itong gabi na to, it's just tells us na tama yung ginawa namin because overwhelming yung mga reaksyon ng mga tao. So salamat sa Signal, sa TV5 at sa lahat ng ating mga supporters. Mabuhay ang MPTC Tour of Luzon 2025.
This is the MPTC Tour of Luzon, the Great Revival.
Stage 1 of the Tour of Luzon 2025, it's happening again. We start in front of the San Agustin Church, and it's 185 kilometers, more or less. From Pawai, we go out towards the diversion road to Lawag City. We have a neutralized start of 5 kilometers, and then beyond that, after the first 5 kilometers sa zero start, doon na pukpukan. We expect na pukpukan talaga sa stage 1. Everybody wants to be in front. Everybody wants to get the cameras kasi Signal and Pilipinas Live will be covering it live. So maganda yung opportunity nila. But after Lawag City, when the road becomes wider and when the traffic becomes less or lesser, it's all headwind, it's all crosswind, and it's all tailwind. From Bacara, and then you go to the land of the windmills, Bangi. In Bangi, mahaba yung stretch ng Bangi. Ang haba niya kung tutusin. Pero sabi nga nila, it's very windy lagi sa Bangi kasi ang lalaki ng electric fan nila. But that's the local joke going around because of the windmills. It's very scenic, but unfortunately for the cyclists, they would only take time to pasilip-silip lang doon sa mga windmills. And then going to Pagudpod, there is this, we found this barangay na it offers a 5-kilometer loop which is very perfect for a U-turn spot sa isang stage race na mahaba. Kasi ang risk kasi ng ng isang U-turn is baka magpang-abot-abot yung mga cyclist. Nakailiko na yung iba at paparating pa lang yung iba, baka magbanggaan, baka magkaroon ng mga mishap. So that we avoided, and we were lucky enough to find that 5-kilometer loop sa Pagudpod, and we will take the same route back towards Bangi, where on the right side of your of the scenery is the beautiful Philippine Sea. If you call that Philippine Sea, it's not the West Philippine Sea, but the Northern Philippine Sea, where the Pacific meets the Philippine Sea, sabi nga nila. And then we enter again Lawag City. We're not passing through Lawag anymore kasi very busy na ang sentro sa Lawag City, very progressive. So after that, the final 5 kilometers is also a fast and open stage and open road. But yung last 500, medyo sisikip ng konti. Kasi residential na siya ng Paway, heading towards the same finish sa left side naman ng Paway Church. Not in front, but on the left side of Paway or San Agustin Church.
Welcome back. We're taking a look at the tail end of the peloton here and the 2025 MPTC Tour of Luzon. Again, coming from Paway to Pagudpod and back to Paway as we're taking a look at the pack here forming. They're starting to thin out here. Let's see if we have anyone who is brave enough to try and attack the chasers that we saw a while ago. The chasers, as we saw here, this is the top end of that peloton. The chasers are not part of this group. Again, the chasers were Junrey Navarra and Junric Carcueva. And of course, the leaders are Judayong and John Paul Morales. John Paul Morales of Standard Insurance Philippines and Judayong of Kapyong Cycling Team, as we're seeing pictures from the top. Now, this is the lead group, and the update that we have here is that there are 2 sprints that have been done so far, and it has been Dayong Ju rather, who has won the 2 sprints here against John Paul Morales of Standard Insurance Philippines. Has been the strongest cyclist so far.